Liberty. Liberty must at all hazards be supported. We have a right to it, derived from our Maker. But if we had not, our fathers have earned it, bought it for us at the expense of their ease, their estates, their pleasure, and their blood. John Adams, 1765. I'd like to have a frank discussion with you guys. First of all, most of you know the Carry Trainer brand and channel for firearm training. Beautiful weapon like this Radian, our blessed Second Amendment, protects our right to own and utilize it for whatever lawful reason we deem fit. No, the Second Amendment is not for hunting. Most of you may have heard me talk about it, but for much of my adult life, I've worked very hard to protect and defend the laws that allow us to continue to have that Second Amendment. That is way more important to me than the guns and the training. That stuff's secondary. I travel coast to coast. I'm very fortunate and lucky to do that. Thankfully, I've had some awesome mentors, teachers, instructors that pass things on to me that I in turn get to pass on to you guys. And I'm grateful and honored that my way passed with some of those men. But I think it's time we have a really frank discussion, a man-to-man. Even if you're not a man, think about it in that sense. A frank discussion between fellow citizens about the state of affairs of where we're at. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. I'm going to ask you to put any preconceived idea or notion that you have about what's going on in the world, put it aside and just try to listen to what I'm telling you. I also want you to do me another favor. I'm nobody from nowhere. I'm not passing on any information to you that's not free for you to get on your own. What I've done is just taken advantage of this beautiful internet, libraries, books, and things of that nature to educate myself where I can, how I can on these topics. Looking at the comment sections, looking at the general upheaval going on in our country, I feel, in my opinion, that many people are apt, and I don't think this is new, but I think many people are apt to talk about the problem, define the problem. You know what I think? You know what I think the problem is? You know what really is the problem? Well, you know what sucks? You know what's going to make it hard for us to stop this? You know what challenges we're up against? That's the easy path, as my friend Z likes to often point out, the path of least resistance. That's the path where you could sit in the barber shop, the coffee shop, the hair salon, by the water cooler, or wherever you're at with your friends. Nowadays, it's on Facebook or it's the comment section. And we just spout out all the different things that we see wrong. We provide no solution, no value. We do not talk amongst ourselves about how we can affect and create change. So here's what I want to talk about. I want to go back in time. I want to together go back in time. See, right now, let's stay here in the present for a minute. Right now, there's a nation of people that earned the right to be here by just being born here. Maybe you immigrated here and got citizenship, but all the hard work was done. Look, if you served in the armed forces, God bless you. That is a fantastic and amazing and honorable act, and I will forever be indebted to you, as will my family, for the service. Any service member I ever meet, I shake their hand and tell them thank you. My mother taught me that, and I think it's a wonderful show of appreciation. But that service is still not the service that I'm talking about. Adam said it right here. Liberty must at all hazards be supported. You see, I think we've gotten to this point in this current world where too much is too easy. Most of us go to the grocery store to purchase dead flesh to eat. We don't have to kill it. It comes packaged and clean. When our family members pass on to the great beyond, we don't have to dig a hole and bury them. We make a phone call. Somebody comes to our home, collects our dead relative, or comes to the hospital and takes them off, where they wash them, primp them up, put them in a nice suit or dress, and we bury them in a nice sealed box. All the dirty stuff we don't have to do. We are so removed from the vicissitudes of life. That's the ebb and the flow. That's the tides, right? We're removed from that. We have created through our intelligence. We are intelligent people. Through our intelligence, we have come up with conveyances, vehicles, right? We don't have to walk or ride horses. We even can just ride a bicycle, which is still better than hoofing it. We've got beautiful shoes, clothing to keep us warm in the winter, homes that heat and cool. We're not out having to chop wood, most of us. We have removed so much of the hardships of life. So now we feel any push that gets us off kilter is just bad. It is bad. I want to go back in time now. And why I want to do this is I want us to think about what these men, we often talk about the founders, their intent. And automatically, if your brain goes to a point where you say those men, they didn't believe in liberty for all because of things like slavery, you need to stop. You and I are here today. Those men can only be judged for what they knew at the time. Just as you and I only can be judged for our level of intelligence and knowledge now today in our life. We cannot judge history through the light of what we know today. Period. You just can't. And when you do, it's a rabbit hole to nowhere. So first off, what is our goal? I hope that your and I goal is to protect our republic because it is a great cause, unlike any ever seen on this planet. And when you start to see and hear me get a little quiver in my voice talking about this, it's for a reason. Because we hang upon a precipice. That is a jagged edge where you have to jump or decide what you are going to do, where a nudge in either direction can tip you into the abyss or back onto land, onto sure footing. We're at that point. We've been here many, many times. The Republic is always in danger, and it always has been. So let's go back. I just printed off some various things, comments, verbiage, discussion points, arguments from the founders. And what we are going to see is what they were thinking about, what their chief aim was, what they woke up and they thought about and talked about, and what they went to sleep thinking about, what they dreamt about, what they chatted about over supper, what they chatted about as they were moving to and about different places and spaces. This is what these men and women focused on day in and day out until the great cause was won. Let's hear from some of them, just so we kind of get an idea of where they were at. This is a good one. I have no fear that the result of our experiment will be that men may be trusted to govern themselves without a master. Thomas Jefferson. That was a letter to David Hartley, 1787. It's pretty good. Check this one out. I know you know this one. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Declaration of Independence, 1776. It's heavy stuff. So hearing that, some people say, well, that's bullshit, because what about slavery? I can only say that there is not a man living who wishes more sincerely than I do to see a plan adopted for the abolition of slavery. George Washington, 1786. Continue. It is much to be wished that slavery be abolished. The honor of the states, as well as justice and humanity, in my opinion, loudly call upon them to emancipate these unhappy people, to contend for our own liberty, and to deny that blessing to others involves an inconsistency not to be excused. John Jay, 1786. He understood a dichotomy and inconsistency. It doesn't make sense that we're saying this thing over here, but over here we've got this problem. Continuing on. One of the most essential branches of English liberty is the freedom of one's house. A man's house is his castle. James Otis, 1761. Let's keep going. The moment the idea is admitted into society that property is not as sacred as the laws of God, and that there is not a force of law and public justice to protect it, anarchy and tyranny commence. John Adams, 1787. Doesn't that sound a little bit like today? The moment the idea is admitted into society that property is not as sacred as the laws of God, and that there is not a force of law and public justice to protect it, anarchy and tyranny commence. That is exactly what we're watching happening across our country. We no longer have the force of law to protect property. As such, anarchy and tyranny are commencing. The people saying they are fighting against tyranny are, in fact, committing the act of tyranny on the rest of us. That's pretty heavy stuff. Government is instituted to protect property of every sort. James Madison, 1792. Why I'm reading you this stuff is I want you to start to grasp that these are not just little quips, not just little statements that these people made from time to time as they went about their business. These are not just thoughts that maybe fleetingly passed through their mouth. They lived this. Many of them lived it from the time they were young men, 18, 19, 20, until they died. They spent their entire existence as adults chasing this great cause of liberty. Does that not stir your guts? Where you and I have to do what? We pay a little taxes, we go vote. Maybe you're one of the people that served in a uniform. Maybe you serve as a law enforcement officer, a first responder, giving back to your community for little pay usually. But even then, you get the rest of your life to do as you please. They gave their entire existence to this cause of liberty. Most of them knowing that we today, the posterity that they talked about in the preamble to the Constitution, we'd get to enjoy it, not them. That's amazing. Most of you have heard, "Give me liberty or give me death," right? Very famous speech. And oftentimes, as people look through that speech, they just want to get to the good part. They want to get to the good part, but they forget so much more of what was said, so much more of what his point was, of Patrick Henry's point was in that discussion. As Henry is addressing the group, you could understand that he was angry. He was ready to do something. He was sick and tired of people talking and doing nothing. He said, "Mr. President, it is natural to man to indulge in the illusions of hope. We are apt to shut our eyes against a painful truth and listen to the song of that siren till she transforms us into beasts. Is this the part of wise men engaged in a great and arduous struggle for liberty? Are we disposed to be of the number of those who, having eyes, see not, and having ears, hear not, the things which so nearly concern their temporal salvation? For my part, whatever anguish of spirit it may cost," this is my favorite part, "I am willing to know the whole truth, to know the worst, and to provide for it." That's a dude right there. He said, "I'm not scared about what's going to happen. Part the curtain, open the door, and let's step forth into the light of day. Let's not hide here in this stinky hall talking anymore. I'm willing to know the whole truth, to know the worst, and to provide for it. Not to just know, but to provide for it, to do something about it." This is good stuff. As he continues towards the crescendo of his speech, I'm smiling reading it because this stuff is just amazing to think about what these men thought about all day long. Our changed are forged. Their clanking may be heard in the plains of Boston. The war is inevitable, and let it come. I repeat, sir, let it come. It is in vain, sir, to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry, peace. Peace, but there is no peace. The war has already begun. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear? Or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. You've all heard that part. So as we sit here talking, make no mistake, I am not talking about a call to arms. I am talking about a call to knowledge, to appreciate the great sacrifice that this nation is and was for you to exist in the manner that we do today. Both of us have reaped the rewards of a cause that we never can appreciate. Never again in the history of this planet will the cards be lined up for this to happen again. And it's quite amazing that you and I get to be here to enjoy it. As such, are we not responsible to proliferate this republic? What then are you willing to do? What then is too much? For me, there is nothing. What cause, what discussion, what knowledge sought, what work put in can be too much to protect this great republic? Tell me. If all of our conversations go back to problems and we do not discuss solutions, we are not honoring what these men did. I visited many graves of the signers, as many as I can. Whenever I travel around the East, I look up what of the signers of the Declaration and of the Constitution are buried in the region I'm in. And if I can, I will drive and see those graves. I've taken my children, I've taken my nephew, I've taken my wife to these different places. And that's hallowed ground. These people traded, as I stated earlier, the better part of most of their adult lives. Time with family. Treasure for many of them. Fear of death. But at the end of the day, take all of that aside. Think about what they invested their thought energy into. This is the purpose of this whole discussion. What were they thinking about all day long? Think of anybody that's successful at anything. Chances are those people invest most of the thoughts and energy throughout their waking hours into that task. Be it an Olympic athlete, an NFL star, a top musician, a champion of business or industry. Most of those people invest most of their free time into that goal. These people, these men, these women invested most of their free time in creating a world where you and I can even have this free discussion, where you and I can seek to do whatever it is we want. And if you choose to use your gift that you were handed by them to just point out flaws and problems, but do nothing to change it, and make no mistake, tearing streets up, tearing cities up, calling everybody that disagrees with you a racist, even if they're not, that's not a cause. That's an excuse. That's an excuse for poor behavior, and it's an excuse to throw what I call a temper tantrum. It is a temper tantrum because you don't have the tools to be heard. You deserve to be heard. You should be, but do it within the confines of law. If you do not like the laws, change them. It is quite that simple. In our state of Illinois, the right to carry a pistol or to have certain weapons used to be denied. We collectively got together and we worked cohesively as a unit until we were razor sharp and we could cut through whatever nonsense was at hand. And when somebody tried to put a bill up that was going to create more problems, we fought them down or we beat them with the ballot. You can do that anywhere. It's work though. And most of us fall back on the notion that I got a job. I got stuff to do. So did these dudes. So did they. So did they. You don't think that they had fields to tend to? Cows to milk? Shops to keep? Families to raise? You're damn right they did. You're damn right they did. It's pretty heavy. It's pretty damn heavy. I am willing to know the whole truth, to know the worst, and to provide for it. Liberty is a flame that must be nurtured. These men sparked it. They sparked it with something that stirred up in their guts to know that they should not and could not be oppressed by a crown. That they came to this beautiful land and they were going to live. And yes, there are many wrongs in that story. To dwell on them doesn't change them. To dwell on them does nothing but to dwell on them. But we are here today. We can set whatever course we choose. That flame of liberty, it cannot be fanned by dead people. It must be fanned by the living. That's you. That's you. This great cause of liberty is in your hands. It's not about the tool. It's not about the tool at all. It is about living a good life, living a full life, living free to worship as you choose, to love whoever you want, to enjoy all of the blessings that this nation has to offer, as long as your enjoyment doesn't infringe upon the rights of others. Take heart. There are people out there like these men and these women still at work, carrying the load of liberty on your behalf every single day. They're out there. If you can sleep with that, if you can sleep with yourself, continue mission. But if that starts to eat at you because you know that you received something that you do not deserve and have not done something to be able to pass that on to somebody else, maybe, just maybe, you'll begin to blow on those flames of liberty yourself. They cannot be fanned by the dead, friends, only the living. Think hard. Peace